Yeah, so writing, just to answer your question regarding Facebook, I'm not sure yet. Just that last posting that I did on self-healing, I guess they got their feathers ruffled that the body can heal itself, and they had a problem with it. So we'll see what that is. But anyway, we'll still do this class, and I really feel strongly about it because it gives me an opportunity at least once a week to really dive into, and it makes it sort of an open forum in some cases. Today, we want to talk about the journey of reaction. And one of the things I found is, first of all, the color today is going to be yellow because it has to do with self-control. It's our control center. It's just in our solar plexus, and it is connected to anything that we have control over or have the theory that we have control over it, or other people have control over us. But in this reaction, it has to do with us. Why is it that some things can be said to one person and not have any reaction whatsoever? And the same thing is said to someone else and they go ballistic. And so many people say, well, why is that? Is it something that I said? And the answer is usually, as a pretty much a generic answer, no. It's nothing you said. It's the way they heard it. It's the way that something has sparked a nerve in the past in somebody, and they are reacting to it. I mean, we see this kind of energy from twins where they're born at the same time and they have very similar thoughts. Their appearance looks very similar, but one would be very angry a lot of times and the next twin would be easygoing. We see this a lot. And it's all on how we see the thoughts. I wasn't held enough, or whatever the thoughts that you feel in your perception that something should have happened when you were younger. Because when we're in it, when we're kids, we don't know any better, do we? We just go through life and we feel whatever the life that we're going through, everybody's going through, right? Everybody's going through that. If you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, if you were given things, from a very early age and you got all kinds of love, you would feel everybody's doing that. But that is so further from the truth, because sometimes we'll go through many people's history and we'll find all kinds of events and incidences that had happened in someone's past. That's always disturbing. That's always hurtful. That's very, in the sense that it gets their dander up, right? And in some comments, when people say something, we sort of touch those points. And that's why it hurts, because it's never been addressed. It's never been addressed, and that's where reaction comes from. So it's not so much self-control, we got to hold ourselves back, and it isn't any of that. And at the very end, I'll just give you a quick quote as we sum everything up. But it's nothing like that at all. And so when we just look at a few reasons why people react the way they do, one could be a family thing. One example that I've given in other classes is if you have a mentally challenged child, or let's say a brother or a sister was mentally challenged, and it's in your life every day. You're trying to get this person, and they could be even 25 years old, but they're just like they're 8, sort of thing. And then somebody comes in, and they say that the traffic was so crazy. My God, they stop and go. It was retarded. So a comment like that for some people would be no big deal. Yeah, the traffic is crazy. But to one person that a nerve is touched, that word might not be appropriate for them. And that's why their reaction is different. So when we look at what why people go off on the deep end, as they called it, it's usually because there's something in their past that is not addressed, that is being touched, and it hurts. And they react. They jump up. They just say, oh, no, that's not the way to say those. It's politically incorrect, or not correct, or politically inappropriate. There was once upon a time, it was perfectly fine to call a policeman, but now we have to do constable or officer, because policeman might not be right. And even the latest thing with pronouns and everything. I don't want to get into a lot of the ideologies, but there are things that are happening in society that's becoming touch points and hurt points in other people. And it's not that you have to adjust whatever you're doing. It's just that just be aware that those things are going on. That is all. It doesn't mean you have to edit everything you do, because you have to do something. Some way, somehow, things are going to be going in that direction. Another one is, let's say, a past situation. Let's say, for instance, you have a mother and a grandmother in the same household, and a grandfather, let's say, and everyone's telling this child to always clean everything, clean your room, clean up after yourself in the kitchen, clean the washroom, clean the floors. And it's almost like a Cinderella scenario type of thing, right? And then after a while, no matter what they do, it's not clean enough, and they're always being forced. And so if you fast forward, let's say 20, 30 years or so, this person may not like to clean for obvious reasons. And then when someone says, we should do something with the backyard, we need to clean it up. That word clean, it's like, I just hate that word. And it's just a word. Clean. How could you say clean wrong? But to some people, clean is a bad word. It is. So it's that type of thing. The other thing is penalties. Another thing that creates a reaction from people is, let's say you have a father that is very punctual. They'll actually get to the appointment 15 minutes early, wait in the car for 14 and a half minutes, then walk in the door exactly when it says 4 o'clock. You're people like that. And if you come in late, you're 2 minutes. What's going on? There's a reaction. And if you look back at that person's childhood, where did that punctuality come in? Because we weren't born that way. That we know. Because as kids, who cares what time it is, right? As kids. So somewhere in there, we were taught to basically be on time, or boy, are you in trouble. So when punctuality comes into play, this is where that reaction again would be like that. And there's many examples like this. We're just touching on a few of the top ones. Another one is stereotypes, like when someone says, oh, I have a woman driver. I heard that about 3 weeks ago. And, I just snicker because, wow, that's an old one, right? But there are still people that go ballistic over that. Oh, women are good drivers. Actually, they are really good drivers. They're sometimes better than men. But that's beside the point. But the point is, when you stereotype, other people will react in such a hostile way because, again, you've touched a nerve. Maybe in their childhood, something happened that everybody was saying, women are this, women are that, women are whatever it is. And they just got tired of it. And now, being older, they can address it rather than address other people, because you'd be doing that for the rest of your life. Does that sound right? I mean, if you are not doing the inner work on just softening that hurt, and if you try to correct every single person that is touching your points, you'd be doing that for the rest of your life. So it's not the most optimal way to run your energy, is by correcting people, by reacting to people. So then the next question is, well, Tony, okay, fine. How do I react? How do I sort of hold my tongue or bite my tongue? How do I just hold back? And see, there's a flaw in that question, because by holding back, it still means something is pushing you. It still means that something is touching your point. And now your strength has to be, let's hold all this back. And that's not the point. The point is, the best way to not hold anything back is not hold anything back. You should be able to be so free that it doesn't bother you anymore. Now, from a cognitive sense, you might say, yeah, that's a little inappropriate by saying the word, let's say, retarded, or saying the word native instead of indigenous. All these things are like that, but it doesn't hit you in an emotional, hurtful way anymore. And that's inner work. That's all about inner work. So that changes the reaction, right? So this is what it's all about. It's about looking at the emotional labels of your past and trying to find out, where am I reacting in such a way? And it's not like creating scenarios where if somebody says this word, or if someone says that word, because there's so many words right now that, even the word God, even the word dad, even the word mother, you would think that these are pretty safe words, and it isn't. There are people that had a very, very difficult religious background, childhood, and they just don't want anything to do with religion. And some absolutely do, and that's okay either way. But just the word dad, in my mind, I had a great dad. He celebrated me. I had a great mom, and she celebrated me. But that doesn't apply to everyone, because some people's mother or their father or their grandfather, they don't even want to see them even after they pass. And I'm serious about that, because when they come in for a reading and I say, well, grandpa's here, I don't want to talk to him. Tell him to go back. Go back to where you came from. Well, he's in heaven, but okay. So, but he's not going away because he still wants to talk to you. I don't want to talk to him. You see, I mean, when you just use words, words have power to the individual. It is not a blank slate. There are very, very few words that are safe. Even babies. If you say the word baby to some people, oh yeah, those rugrats. It's not even safe to say the even beautiful words. So where does that come into play? So this is all a signal to us that most of this work has to be internal, and we have to start with us first. Okay. You got to also realize that anything from the past, we already know you can't change it. I mean, we hear that a lot, of course. Can't change your past. I get it. However, you'd be surprised that people sure want to. Boy, if I had the opportunity to be 5 again and I had to relive my life, I would change this, whatever that event was. You would change it. And in doing that, it sort of sets you up, because you're thinking that by changing the past, that would be the solution. And it isn't. Changing the past isn't the solution. The solution is whatever that is bothering you has a solution built into the problem. Okay? Because these are just memories. And I'm not sort of discounting, I'm not saying just memories. It's not real. It is real from an emotional perspective. Absolutely. When someone says something that really hits home, it's real for you. But it isn't real in the sense that you could put your hands on it. It's not tangible. And it's not something that other people will understand what you're saying unless they were in the same family or witnessed whatever happened. And they could say, yeah, that was a really difficult time when such and such did this thing. And they could account for your distraught, and they could account for the trauma. But when there's nobody there, they have no idea what you've been through. So that same word or that incident or that phrase or the smell or the vision or whatever it is, it's only in you. So the question is, how do we get it so that it's softer, so that when somebody refers to it, it doesn't say, okay, that's it. Okay, now you did it. You opened up the Pandora's box. And when we do that, it's like, why don't we address that box? Let's open it ourselves, not in public, but in private. And really look into it as, why is this bothering us? When we were born, this word or incident didn't bother us, but now it is. And it's all understandable why. And we're not asking the why questions, okay? We're asking the thing is, what is it that we need to do that we could soften this? Because from the past, we can all agree, I think we can, that you've had good memories, right? There are some areas in your life perhaps that isn't the greatest, but there were some good times. You've had sad memories. You've had not so good memories. You've had really happy occasions, excited, like say around Christmas when you were younger, whatever. All these things are part of your memory, And part of that is, well, this little incident in my memory isn't so great, but it's still part of the collective. It's still in this pack-sack that we're carrying around us. And this is what we can't change. So, what Spirit is saying, the ultimate thing about this is, if I were to ask you to take a happy moment and use it to your advantage, it would be a slam dunk. Like, I remember the one time in basketball, I was on a team and they didn't think I could play, and I shot from like this ball from so far away, and I hit a swoosh. A swoosh is the one that goes right in, and it doesn't even touch the rim, and I ended up getting a really good score. So I could take that experience and apply it to something else. See, that would be an advantage. So that's easy, right? So Spirit says that's one example. Now, how do you take a rough example or a traumatic example and use that to your advantage? See, that's going to require a little more soul searching. It's going to require a little more meditation. It's going to require a little more aspect of what is the gift in that. And you're saying, what? There's no gift in that. That was the most horrifying thing that ever happened to me. What am I supposed to find in that? At the very least, it'll be a lesson for something. So what did it teach you? Did it teach you resilience when they said that you were a loser? Did it teach you to stand up for yourself when they say, you're always so quiet? It's best that you just stay quiet because you have nothing to say. And then you said something. What is it about that? What happened in that made you get through it? And you're still looking back at why did it happen? And that's the mind screw, if I could use that word, because when we look back to look at it, we keep saying, oh, that wasn't so great. I went in front of the class and I wanted to do a presentation and I stuttered and I tripped over my word. I forgot half of what I wanted to say. I kind of embarrassed myself, and it's not a good memory. What did you learn? What did you learn from that? When we look at it that way, when we start looking at the negative energies and what we are learning from it, all of a sudden the situation changes a little bit better. To be able to, the goal, Spirit is saying, is to make yourself into a more spirit-minded being having a human experience. We're all going through a human experience, but we're all spiritual beings. But when we are thinking of trauma, when we are thinking of something that we're inferior, we're not that good at, we become more human than we do spirit, or that we do that is uplifting. Is that safe to say? Okay, of course. When we look at only our faults and all the things that we did, we messed up, we tripped up, we failed at something, somebody left us, somebody duped us, they said one thing, did another. Yeah, these are all maybe memories that aren't that great, but what did you learn? How do we make it so we can get wisdom out of what happened? And then all of a sudden, you start relabeling your past. Remember, we talked about relabeling in other episodes where if I give you a word and you sort of swallow this word, yeah, it's really sore, and you're touching that emotion, and every time you touch it, it hurts. Well, how do we relabel it so that it's not going to be such a hit? If we can say it's a lesson, okay, but what did we learn from that? What did we do from that? Because what the masses do is that they'll take a hurtful experience and take it, turn it into a baseball bat, and what do? They hit themselves with it. I'm no good. I'm a loser. I'm this, I'm that. I'm going to give you a little idea right near the end of this of why people do that. And when I heard it from Spirit, I was blown away. So remind me if I don't have to, if I say that. But it is all about self-sabotage. We hear this all the time. Why are you self-sabotaging yourself? I don't know. It's because there's something that was hurtful that you're thinking that you have to dummy it down so that you are the same as what you're thinking. In other words, your abilities are so much more than you think they are. You know what? Ask a best friend what your abilities are. And I guarantee it'll be different than yours because they'll have, oh, you could do this so good. Oh, but Joan, you could do this and this. You're great with the kids. You're great in business. I've seen you in action. You're just amazing. And you're just saying, well, I really don't know about that, right? They'll always, a best friend that will tell you like flat out what you are and what they see is going to be different than your own. So it is a self-perception of whatever it is you think you are, you could do, and whoever you think you represent. So this is where they start blaming other people for their misfortunes. Oh man, if I was born into money, I'd be rich right now. Well, actually, if you were born into money, you'd be rich then. And in most of the people that are rich these days, they didn't start out that way. They started out actually very poor, living in a garage, basically running their business from a cardboard box. And they've built something because they saw a vision. Weren't born into that. And nor do we want to always be handed what we need to do. We need to sort of have the vision and be able to manifest it ourselves, and we can. So we have basically two choices here. When something happens in our life, we've got a choice whether to be wounded and say that we are wounded and that's our identity. And as soon as this is something I really want to stress, the reaction in where people are is when you have the self-definition that you're wounded, that you're a victim, watch what happens to that person when something good happens to them. Like they get this phenomenal job, or they win a lottery, or like they win a small lottery, or if something happens that's positive, watch what their next statement will be. Some of them will be something like, yeah, I can't imagine what's going to happen now. I'm sure I'm going to lose it all. Or this money that I just won, I can't believe the taxes I'm going to have to pay because now I got this. This car that I won, I'll probably have an accident and I'll lose it. In other words, they're going to dummy it down because something good happened and it conflicts with their wounded identity. Okay? The second thing is, are you going to be a person of wisdom? Anything that happens to you, whether it's good, or we had a fantastic weekend and I learned to really go all weekend. I can actually believe that a person can have a party from Friday to Sunday and not sleep. That's what I learned. So it's easy. But what if something bad happens? It's okay. I still learned something. I learned not to trust a person that's yada, 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 whatever the lesson was. Because they're always looking for, what can I get from this that's going to help me? Wisdom. So the whole advantage here is, how do we turn anything, whether it's sad, even a pet passing away. My grandson the other day, we didn't tell him that our dog had passed away. In it. So, and he didn't really notice because the dog was usually sleeping. He always used to sleep about 23 and a half hours a day. So he was always off to one side. He was always laid back. And then one day he just said, "Oh, where's Noogie? Where'd he go?" I said, "Oh, he's in heaven." "Oh, I miss him." I says, "Well, he's right beside you. You just close your eyes. Do you remember what he looks like?" "Yes." "Well, there he is." In other words, you're turning something that was sort of a sad situation, and for a child, I was already reprogramming him to look at it in a different way. Same situation, but it's different. And he says, "Yeah, I could see him. I love him." I said, "That's great." And then he said, "You're going to get another dog?" I said, "Probably will. We probably will, because we like animals, and we know that the love that we have, another animal will be happy to receive our love. So you just keep thinking about that." He says, "I will." So when we look at those things, we will get out of sort of the rut quicker than most people. Does that make sense? I mean, this is where quick reactions. Like something bad happens. Oh my God, we just got a hydro bill of $5,000. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Who left the stove on or something all month? But the idea is, what do you do with that reaction? You react. Well, hold it now. Hold it. Okay, maybe they put in a couple of extra zeros. Oh, yeah, could be. That's exactly what happened. It should have been $50 or $250, and they made a mistake. But the reaction tells a person, or should tell yourself, that there is so much energy that is unaddressed that there's no room for calm. There's no room to say to yourself, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe, because you need room for that. You need room. You need a little bit of sort of elbow room to say to yourself, well, let's pause for a second. That doesn't make any sense. That's crazy. Yeah, that's a lot of money, but that doesn't make any sense. Let's look into it, and then we'll go from there, right? Now, one concept or one reason why a person can have an overreaction, we've heard of this, where you'll come into a room and then you'll drop a pen, or I've seen cases where somebody spilt milk and some of it goes on the floor, and a person that sees this goes ballistic. Wow, you get on the floor, and they're just going crazy. I'm just looking at them, and I says, it's okay, we'll wipe it up. It's not a big deal. But I wasn't looking at so much what they were looking at, whether it was right or wrong, or yes, or we could have had another cup, and all the human stuff. But I'm looking at such a short fuse. It means that they have no way that they can calm down. And so one concept, and there are many of them, but I want to, we only have time to maybe focus on one. One concept is a person has to have some idle time. You know what idle time is? When was the last time you were bored? Like bored out of your mind, like looking at the wall. We see a lot of teenagers. I saw, they tell me that, oh yeah, we're just bored. But it's not the kind of bored that teenagers go through. And this is what the correction was, is that if you are used to constantly being entertained, like you're doing video games, you're going outside and you see an explosion, that's entertaining. And as soon as there's 20 seconds of silence, I'm bored. That's not the boredom I'm talking about. Okay? Just so you know, the boredom I'm talking about is that you have nothing to do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You just go to the woods, and I want you to count how many bird tweets that you hear in the forest. How many different birds are there? Or count the different leaves that as you're walking, that will hit you. Or be able to see how many ducks are on the water. And you could be there for hours. That kind of boredom I'm talking about. Long boredom that is just like there's nothing to do. Nothing is expected of you. You don't have to return any emails. You don't have to do anything. And this is so important because our ancestors, even the last generation, or maybe not the last one, but the one before that, our grandparents, they knew all about what it would be like to have disposable income. Remember that? Disposable income also was met with, let's go camping for a week. And well, they're not going to do anything. We're just going to skip stones on the water. We're going to go paddle boating. We're going to rent some skidoos, or we're going to rent some scooties. And just to have that time where you're idle. You're not always going all the time. And the masses at the moment, because they are programmed to constantly high produce things, they're constantly, if they were a farmer, it would always be spring and always be planting. And as soon as they plant, they're looking at harvesting almost the next day, right? So it's high performance, something they could just do as a side hustle real quick, get some money, reinvest it. Everything is done in a knee-jerk reaction way, and you're constantly busy. Some of these influencers, I saw a interview on, and some of these influencers literally work 19, 20 hours a day. doing their YouTube channel, Instagram. And by the way, their productions are amazing. Just really nice, good, professional stuff. But look at the time they have to put making sure their stuff is on top. Yes, they have 1 million plus viewers, but they're chained to the computer. They have no idle time. Their idle time is going to the washroom and basically drifting off to sleep, and they call it crashing, like a plane would crash into the place. So there's no idle time. And one of the things that we find in our energy is that when people say something and you have no idle time, the reaction is a short fuse, usually something that you hit upon right away. You get jumped because you're so used to being alert, so used to be high all the time that there's no rest. There's no stand back. There's no anything like that. They did a study a number of years ago, and they tested what they call redwoods. You know what a redwood tree is? It's these massive trees that they have in the forest, and some of them are literally 18 feet in diameter, or the radius, right? The diameter. And some of these trees can last hundreds and hundreds of years. Huge redwoods. And they did an experiment where they injected a chemical in the tree very similar to adrenaline that would keep the tree awake so that it wouldn't go into this sort of semi-hibernation. In some of these areas, there is no winter, but it's almost like the tree sort of rests for those 3 or 4 and 5 months, right? It just took a nice rest, and then it goes through spring again. Like in Canada, we go through an actual winter where there's minus 35, 40 below. Okay, then the tree definitely goes into hibernation. But these redwoods, they're in areas where it's spring all the time, but it still goes through, or used to go through, that what they call winterizing, that rest, the areas of rest. So they injected this chemical to keep the tree awake, so it would not go into this sort of semi-hibernation. And despite the fact that these trees could last 100 years, they only lasted 1 more year and then died. And they always wondered, well, what happened there? It's because the nature is geared for you to rest. Nature already has built into everything, animals, bears, insects, the water, everything has a point where it rests. You'll go to a lake and you'll see it's like glass. No waves, no wind, nothing. The water is resting. And other times there's waves. There's like 2-3 foot waves, right? So nature has a way of resting, but we find a way that we have to somehow be on all the time, or we're going to miss a sale, or we're going to miss something. And this is where Spirit says, this is where we're missing something, because even when you take off the weekend, and they've done this. Now, there are cultures, and I don't want to mention the cultures because I don't want to, mention it in that way, but there are so many cultures in our society that actually has a Friday off, or they have a weekend, or they call it, there's certain, whether it's Ramadan or whether it's Shabbat, whatever it is, they call it, and it's their time of rest, and nothing moves. It could be on a Friday or a Monday or whatever the time it is, and nothing moves. And when you look at the sales, they are still as high as they would be whether they would have worked it or not. But we have the idea that we shouldn't take time off because we're taking time away from our business, and our business needs us. And that's where the energy starts to sort of adjust. Believe it or not, the energies around your business is very smart. If it knows you're not going to take time off, it will reduce the sales and spread the sales you would have made in 1 day over 2 days. So instead of taking, let's say, the Monday off, you're going to work the Monday and the Tuesday. But then they'll just make it so that the sales will be the same whether you took the Monday off and then worked all day Tuesday. And that happens. That happened to me quite a few times. So when we look at the way the nature gets all of that rest, it is all about getting into that energy where we are constantly creating. Spirit says that distraction, in other words, constantly being on, distraction is the death of creativity. But boredom is the birthplace of it. If you look at when you start getting your best ideas, and I know some people just got back from holidays. Some people went camping, other people went skiing, other people went abroad doing things. And they came back and it says, Tony, I had these great ideas. When I was on this boat looking at the water, I had this epiphany. I had this idea. I had this whatever it was. Because that's when you get your ideas, when you're in that restful state. Self-control is all about strength, but it's not about strength because you're holding yourself back, as I said. It's more about not having to hold yourself back is the best self-control, because you've looked at the inner work, you've looked at the inner resolutions. And so when something comes up, it's no longer a thing. You remember it, but it's not going to be so emotionally hurtful as it used to be. Calmness, they say, is mastery. When you get to a certain point in your mood and in your shift, you start realizing that you don't have to be jumping like a Pop-Tart with every insignificant actions of others. Just because somebody phoned you or somebody, like if I'm with somebody and the phone rings, sometimes I'll have the phone beside me, but a lot of times I'll just have it away because I want to put my full attention on the person talking, whether it's in business or private. I don't like to have my phone because it's too distracting. What the person is telling me is a big deal, and I want to be sort of present in that moment. But as other people, they'll hear a sound and they're constantly distracted. Their eyes are going everywhere, and I've heard this from one client recently where she went on this date, first time, and she says, I now look at the man's eyes to see if the waitress will go by and if his eyes are going to follow. And as soon as it does, I'm done. Because she has various other experiences where all the other experiences of a date went because he was always so distracted and too busy for her. And she's absolutely right. For her, this applies. It might not have the same effect with you, but you'll start seeing patterns. And because those relationships didn't work, she turned it around and made herself wiser. And now she's looking at the person, right? And as soon as this one guy, no matter what happened, he stared at her and he says, you know what? This is my guy. He never took his eyes off her. She said something, there was somebody dropped some glass or something and there was a big crash and he didn't move his eyes. He says, oh yeah, okay, this means I am the most important thing right now in his life and I want to remain there. I don't want to be in a back seat. That was her concept. So this is where you can turn things around, okay? Don't allow your emotions to overpower your intelligence. Because you want to be with a person, because you want to be loved, because you want to be in a relationship, just be careful. You know, when you hurry it too much, you'll start realizing, I should have been single because instead of with this person. You're not looking for a pulse. You're not looking for someone that you can just say, this is my girlfriend, or this is my boyfriend, or this is my relationship. You want somebody that will care. I can't think of another word. Just care about what you're saying, about what you do, about your day. I care a lot. Every time my wife comes home, how was your day? Oh, you know, and you tell all the dynamics there. Oh, yeah, he did that again. Oh, what a dummy, you know. And we just talk. But her stress is she's part of HR in her company, and she can't say a lot of this stuff because she's part of HR. And so I says, oh yeah, you could tell anything to me, and she does, and she gets it out. She says, oh, I feel so much better. I says, okay, well, good. And so I do that because for her, it's a stress relief. Now, here's one thing that I really hit home about. Remember when I said in the beginning about the self-sabotage? Do you know why we do that? And this is going to blow your mind. You might want to write this down, because I wrote it down as I was hearing it. It says, in a relationship with ourselves, it scares us the most. That's because deep, deep down, we sense that we are invincible and we have lots of power, which might be why we are so hard on ourselves. It keeps going by saying we will continue to self-sabotage ourselves to the point where we match our own belief on how small we think we are. What this means is, if you have a concept of yourself where you think you're small, you will self-sabotage yourself to that level. And then you won't hurt yourself anymore, because then it hurts. Like when you say, oh, yeah, I'm not very good as a public speaker. And somebody says, not very good, you suck. Oh, well, I wouldn't go that far, right? Because you think you have a little bit of talent in it. So in other words, when someone goes too far, then you stick up for yourself. But as long as someone says, yeah, you're not that good. Yeah, I'm not that good. And it's agreeable, you're okay with someone saying that because it matches your self-identity. And it's interesting that when we feel we are so invincible that we have to self-sabotage to the point where it gets watered down. And then we feel that, why don't I feel I have a lot of energy? And that's because that's what you want, because you don't feel you have this invincibility. But I'll tell you something. You know where this invincibility comes out? I'll tell you, is when your kids need something, when they need help. Let's say they're in a fire in a house. You tell me you're not going to jump over a 6-foot fence and actually swim through swamp to get into the house and get your child. Because you'd never do that if it was a bag of potatoes. That's where because when it's invincible, when you feel like I have to do this, well, the invincibility comes right to the surface, and you don't want to stop anybody in that energy, because they will flatten you. Doesn't matter how old. I've seen an 80-year-old person run where they were limping before to save something, to do something, because it was so important that the invincibility is surfaced right away, because the want was greater than their self-identity. That's where the reaction changes. Reactions very, very much linked to your self-identity. So it's all about inner work. Okay? All right, so we're going to start that meditation here. Okay, I have another example. I'll do this after for those that have to leave at 2:30. In this meditation, what I want you to do is I want you to, we're going to be playing, because today's color is yellow, we're going to be playing the sunlight meditation. And this is probably going to be the easiest meditation I've ever asked you to do, because in this meditation, I want you to put yourself in boredom. I want you to put yourself in a place where time doesn't matter, situations don't matter, nobody's expecting anything from you. I want you to put yourself actually in a state of boredom and just watch the video. The sounds and everything are going to come through. So if you have any earbuds, that would really help, actually, if you have those ear things, because then a lot of the tuning fork frequencies will come in. But if you have a good speaker, that's good too. All right. So I want you to breathe in the color of yellow. Okay. Take a deep breath. Breathe in the color yellow. And I just want you to just stay in this boredom. La-dee-da land is what I call it. Okay. And we'll see you in about 15 minutes. slowly come out of the state that you're in. Try and remember what you saw, what you felt, what you sensed. What memories jarred up in your time of boredom? Write them down, because there were pockets of boredom that somehow something was placed in there. I'll go first just to get the ball rolling. For me, this was crazy involved. Wow, there's so many memories as a kid with my dad playing catch. Like we were sitting on the porch one time. He said, "Let's just throw the ball around." So we had two mitts and we were throwing the ball back and forth. I haven't thought of this vision in literally decades, and it was trapped in that boredom energy. And it's just like, oh wow, this was such a good time, And then the time where we just went fishing and we sat for hours looking at the pole, didn't catch much. And as a kid, I remember there was also a construction area near our place. And when the construction workers left, I was playing in some of the cement culverts and stuff, playing fort, just being bored, and it was such a great thing for me. I don't know. It just, I don't know if anybody else felt that like that, but that's what I got from it. I hadn't done this particular side of it until Spirit mentioned it, that we were going to do it this way. So this was really impactful for me. Anybody else feel anything? So much came up. Processing now. Oh, absolutely. No, we don't want to interrupt that. Yeah. So I'm going to leave you with this. Your homework this week is I want you to get at least a half hour, Spirit is saying at least 30 minutes of boredom a day. Whether it's in the morning or halfway through the day. And remember, this is not boredom where you're not doing anything. Okay, that's not the boredom it is. The boredom is you just could look at a wall, for 15 minutes and not get, thinking you have to do something. If you feel you have to answer an email, then do all that. Get that out of the way so that when you're in this boredom energy, I don't want you to do anything. I don't want you to think anything. If you want to go outside, you go outside. Because if you're bored, that's what you do. You don't want to do anything. So the first thing that comes to you, you know what? I think I should jump on my bike and just do a quick 10K. Or I'll just go for a walk. Or I'll just take the dog and I'll go on a boat and we're just going to go boating, rowing a boat. Or whatever it is for you. Whatever it is. Because when you're bored, it's just the first thing you see, yeah, let's do it. There's no resistance whatsoever. And I think that's the point, is when you're bored, there's nothing that you would not sort of, do. Like I remember from our house to get down to the launching pad to launch the boats, I used to kick a Coke can. There was a Coke can right outside my door, and I would kick it on the pavement until I got to the other end, and I would kick it back. Something like that. But something so frivolous, so mindless, so, has no, that's, Spirit says there's a gift in that when you can be in that energy. Either it will bring something up, or if there's still something that you're working through. I'm so glad I was able to drop in. Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's great, Jacqueline. Thank you. And it's just sort of bringing in that energy where nothing is expected of you, because in real life, everybody expects everything from you, right? So this is the exact opposite. Now, this is not going to work for somebody who's, let's say, I'm not getting anybody here, but let's say if this were to go out to the auditory, because we're going to put this on YouTube, and if somebody is hearing this and they're not working, or there's a lot of inactivity. Yeah, that's not the boredom that I'm looking at. It's usually from high performance people that you're always wanting something to do, and people will say, okay, if you're a mother or grandmother or whatever, and there's a lot of things you need to do, you just need time for you. It's a me time. And so take 30 minutes a day over the next 7 days. By the seventh day, you're going to have a revelation that's going to blow your mind, they say, because there's something in that boredom energy that's just going to come out. You should get it in the first half hour. This was only 15 minutes, this particular meditation. If you want to still listen to this, I'll post it. I'll post the link to this. Okay. And in the sunlight, and it's called the Sunlight Meditation, and it's in our YouTube channel, on our YouTube channel. Okay, I posted that, and there's the link for the video, and I have, of course, the audio for that. Let's say you don't want to watch anything, you just want to go through the bush and then listen to it on podcast. I have it in a podcast form as well. I was going to put one more thing in here, but I'm feeling there's a lot of processing going on, so I'm not going to interrupt that, because it's the processing that has these nuggets in there, and I don't want to upset that. So for that, if there's nobody else that has any questions or any comments or anything, boredom helped me calm down and connect to my body. It was hard. Yeah. So if you do find it, that is very, very common. When all of a sudden someone says, I don't expect nothing of you, it sort of shocks us for a little bit. Wait a second, that's not, I never hear that. Everybody wants something from me, right? And so when they say, no, I don't want nothing, I just want you to stay bored, I just want you to be in this nothing energy, and what do you feel like doing? What do you feel like doing? I want you to be a kid, be a little boy, little girl, be a roamer. It doesn't matter. Just whatever you want to do in that half hour. If in the morning is most optimal, because if people are maybe still asleep, and then you could go outside and do your thing, or at night when the moon is up, I'll leave that to you, whatever's optimal. But a half hour every day for 7 days. After 7 days, Spirit says you will not be the same person. There's going to be something in that energy that's going to constantly come up. And then this is where some of those things that were not addressed are going to come up. And then you can start looking at it. And then let's see if we could use that boredom to soften that up a little bit. It is all about reaction. That way, when something happens, you'll have little reaction. Your intelligence will kick in before your emotion will. And then you'll realize there's nothing to be really all upset about it anyway. You would have reacted, over that wasn't necessary. In other words, you're conserving your energy. You're conserving your strength because it's so precious. What you do is so precious. And this gives so much self-appreciation, self-worth to you. People, you have yourself a fantastic weekend. I love you all. Let me know how this works for you, this 30-minute for 7 days, okay? That will give you, so what is that? 210 minutes? So that's about 3.5 hours worth of stuff of boredom. And you'll be surprised of how wise you will be by doing nothing. You're going to activate something that you never expected. The nothing energy is exactly where the nuggets are, right? You don't find gold on top of the mountain. It's in the streams that you got to pan for, right where your feet are. Okay? And it's a very slow process. You've got it 7 days, 30 minutes. Okay. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Okay. Love you all. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys.
Well, thank you.
Bye, Tony. Thank you.